Welcome to the Pod Slice featuring the All In Podcast. Today, Jason, Chamath, Sachs, and Brad Gerstner discuss various topics such as politics, macroeconomics, AI, and venture capital. The conversation shifts to politics, specifically the article written by DeSantis in the Wall Street Journal, where he talks about how wokeism is modern Marxism. They discuss DeSantis' approach towards checking bad ideas and how it resonates with the current Republican base. Moving on to macroeconomics, the hosts discuss the massive AI FOMO frenzy currently happening, with over 500 generative AI startups collectively raising more than $11 billion. They emphasize the importance of rational investing and understanding market dynamics, cautioning against practicing FOMO and chasing every company. They also talk about the importance of thinking about incentives and the pressure on venture investors to put the money to work. The hosts then discuss the stock market and how it is essential to understand what is happening in the market, not just follow the hype. They also talk about how the GameStop fiasco brought retail investors to the forefront, and how retail investors are like the new hedge funds. The conversation shifts towards investing in the AI space, with the hosts discussing the problem of deploying capital in AI and the lack of time diversity, which is a recipe for terrible returns. They agree that AI is a major platform shift on the level of the internet and mobile, but point out that Meta is spending $20 billion in 1 year alone on AR/VR. They also discuss the idea of investing in the silicon layer and the white truffle's unique sources of data that make reinforcement learning output exceptional. They argue that there are currently too few silicon startups and white truffles, and too much bologna in the middle. They all agree that investing in AI is still in the early stages and requires careful study and selectivity. They also discuss the recent events surrounding the Sequoia-backed startup, No, and its founder's decision to do a cram down instead of adding more to the top. They also talk about the importance of resetting the valuation, refreshing the equity pool, and issuing options back to employees to keep them motivated. The group emphasizes the importance of prioritizing the people doing the actual work in a company, being courageous enough to admit when things are not working, and moving on to do something else. They also discuss inflation and macroeconomics, with Brad Gerstner offering his opinion on the recent market swings in response to inflation concerns. The group then discusses the possibility of higher interest rates and the gap between net income and cash flows in S&P 500 firms. They also talk about consumer spending and the tech ecosystem, acknowledging that great innovation will keep happening no matter what the macroeconomic picture looks like. However, they tend to be gloomy about the macro picture given the steep rate increases and the withdrawal pangs companies may experience after becoming addicted to the stimulus. The podcast discussion then focuses on the ongoing debate over whether the United States should ban TikTok due to security concerns, as the app is owned by a Chinese company. The discussion quickly moves towards the larger issue of decoupling between China and the US, which is becoming the dominant organizing principle of American foreign policy. The participants debate how large the circumference around national security should be and suggest that a reduction in reliance on China would lead to greater economic prosperity for Central and South American countries. They also discuss the potential for the United States to partner with these countries in the development of zero-cost energy sources, which would reduce China's cost advantages in the global supply chain. The discussion turns to the conflict in Ukraine and the role of the United States and China in the conflict. The participants suggest that the United States is not playing its traditional role as a peacemaker, and that its actions are contributing to the conflict, which may drive China, Russia, and Iran into an axis of evil. They argue that the United States needs to adopt a geopolitical strategy that benefits the country as a whole and that understanding other countries' perspectives is key to navigating the complex geopolitical landscape. The conversation starts with a heated debate about the crisis in Ukraine and how the West should handle it. Jason and David have different views on whether the West provoked Russia to invade Ukraine or not. Chamath believes that the West should present a united front against Putin and hold the line with Russia invading other countries. The conversation then shifts to legacy admissions in Ivy League universities. Dolores Handy's tweet reveals that 43% of white students in Harvard are legacy athletes or related to donors or staff. The speakers agree that legacy admissions are unfair and un-American, and they question the validity of having a legacy system. They also wonder about the relative performance of legacy students versus those who had to fight to get into the university. The next topic that the speakers discuss is Black History Month and its significance. Draymond Green's video is played, where he questions why Black History Month is limited to only 28 days and suggests that Black history should be taught throughout the year. The speakers agree with Draymond's sentiments and believe that Black history should be integrated into the curriculum throughout the year. The discussion then shifts to Stripe, a payment processing company, and how its valuation compares to other companies with similar growth rates and profit margins. The group agrees that the previous valuation was expectation heavy, but the new valuation is more in line with the company's potential. The group then briefly touches on a nuanced discussion about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and Russia, with different views on what resolution looks like. The main conversation then moves to a Bloomberg Businessweek article about the co-founder of the Fugees, Pras Michel, and his involvement in the 1MBB scandal. Another member recommends a New Yorker article about Wirecard, the biggest fraud in German history. However, one member suggests that they shouldn't promote stories from mainstream media because they don't know if they are true or not. Check out the full podcast by clicking the link in the description below. Thank you for listening to this podcast summary episode of the Pod Slice. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.